Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Rajendra Theagarajah, the chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, is here with us to share his thoughts on the progress Sri Lanka has made in the last 12 months. Then, we hear from LMD columnist Hasitha Premaratne about investor sentiment at the Colombo Bourse. And Vihirani Disanayake, the country manager of Kancha TNS, closes the show with a look at TNS's nationwide survey on Sri Lanka's performance in 2017. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Welcome to the Big Picture Business Program Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. Well, we've been looking at 2017, and as it draws to a close, we thought it might be a good idea to find out exactly what has been happening in Sri Lanka in the last 12 months. And in the hot seat today is the chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Rajendra Theagarajah. Welcome, Mr. Theagarajah. Good to have you on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Just as we look back at 2017, and we'd like you to tell us exactly what you see in 2017. What is your overall assessment of Sri Lanka in the last year?
Certainly the country is showing progress in the last few years. 17 has been a mixed bag of events. If I look back and take maybe 2 or 3 of these events, the port transaction I think certainly sets one critical example of a good PPP. We can talk a bit about later. On the not so positives, I think still while there's a lot of policy reforms, there is still lack of focus, need for better prioritization, communication with stakeholders, and pinning accountability. These are 4 areas as a chamber we feel needs more work to be done. So I think while recognizing that it's a gradual improvement, we still need to see more work done.
In which areas do you think Sri Lanka has improved?
I would say the attempt to consciously reduce domestic debt, national debt. It's not an easy thing. And come out in the open and communicate with the public that there is an issue. So the transparency, I think, was welcome. The second issue was the 2008 budget itself, which was the least in terms of a shock, other than 1 or 2 areas, because the bulk of the reforms came in the form of the Indian Revenue Act itself, which I think is good. So now there's a tremendous opportunity for the policymakers to walk the talk in terms of monitoring the implementation and communicating with the general public as to how it is going. Because there's been a lot of criticism on that side. But the fact that the budget, other than 1 or 2 things, was generally had no real changes, was a good sign.
Do you think the richer have got richer and the poorer are simply eking out a living as always? Or do you think greater opportunities have cascaded to everyone?
When I look at Sri Lanka vis-a-vis the rest of South Asia, I still, as a proud Sri Lankan, believe that the middle class is probably the best engaged in this country than if you look from Nepal down up to Maldives. That's a personal perception. The second area is, I think, from the various statements we have heard, Vision 2025, the Grama Shakti program, the budget, as a nation there is an attempt to energize the whole nation, whether it's export orientation, whether it is value chain connectivity from the village unit onwards. It's not just an opportunity for a handful of companies. So now the challenge is for the small, medium and the micro level guys to see whether they want to be part of it and plug.
So what is your take on infrastructure development that has taken place in the last 12 months?
I think as a country which has come out of 3 decades of destruction, this is not something you can plug overnight. We're currently, I think, 7th or 8th year after the completion. A lot of work has been done, especially as far as roads are concerned, secondary and tertiary. but I think much more has to be done and could be done in terms of connecting the country and connecting the people. If I can pause there a bit, I think given that not only Sri Lanka, South Asia as a whole has so much of dependency on the importation of oil, the opportunity for looking at promoting renewable energy. Certainly, I think there needs to be a better investor-friendly policy formulation to reduce the dependency. The second area, I think, in terms of infrastructure, it's not only about building roads or having power stations. It is also about creating ease of doing with people. And here I'm talking about simple things like a digital identification, national security for information protection. These are things which will only increase the confidence of anybody, be it local or overseas, in engaging a digital friendly, e-commerce friendly environment, which is what the world is heading. And that is one area I think the government as a whole needs to invest.
Has Sri Lanka made progress when it comes to national reconciliation?
Yes and no. I think from the yes part of it, I think the fact that there is a conscious, even if you look at the 2018 budget, if we look at the allocation of almost 13 billion rupees focusing on the reconnection and reconciliation for the North and East, is a positive sign, which allows people to participate, stakeholders to participate and do something. But I think there is still a cloud hanging over us regarding Geneva. So at some stage, I think we need to have a clear focus on getting that thing out of the way and move forward with energizing this country with economic development.
Do you think there's a conscious effort to bridge that north-south divide?
I think yes. I certainly think yes. Certainly, while more can be done, I think various stakeholder groups, not just the government, have shown the willingness to connect the North and South. I mean, if I look at the North and South, Savitri, long before the war was even over, when I used to run a large national bank, we had this farmer connectivity program. Regardless of the tension and barriers, we used to send a group of about 20 every year to a major agri center in South India from all 4 communities. And one particular day I remember visiting somebody in Gaul and asking about the northern brother. The guy turned back and said, this is, a politically driven issue for us. Sir, I'm talking about 10 years ago. After that particular visit, we exchange cultivation techniques on SMS despite there being a war. For us, it's value, exchange of information, and that's it. So I think in terms of engagement, even at that time, amongst communities there was engagement. I think it's just that from a policy making and a administrative point, much more can certainly be done.
How do you think the powers that be should lead the way through their words and actions?
Accountability. You see, these words are very important. Words can be done. But I think as we are also coming towards another set of elections, the common Sri Lankan should eventually, when they choose people, they should measure people by what they say and what they do. So this accountability issue is absolutely important, but it is also in the hands of the common citizen.
We'll get back to our discussion, Mr. Theagaraja, about what has been happening in 2017 after the commercial break. So time for a commercial break now, and on the other side, we ask Rajendra Theagarajah about Sri Lanka's status on the international stage and what are his key takeaways for 2017. Stay with us.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal. LMD Podcast now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
We understand that savings provide for life's special moments. That's why we were the first bank to introduce an incentivized savings scheme, Pathum Vimana. We changed how a nation felt about savings because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
You're with Benchmark. We are discussing 2017 and what has been happening in 2017 with the chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, Rajendra Theagarajah. Mr. Theagarajah, when you look at the global landscape, we've been seeing the resurgence of populism. We have also been seeing the never-ending threat of terrorism and also climate change disasters, and increasing at that. To what extent have these changes in this global landscape impacted Sri Lanka, both economically and socio-politically?
So I'll come to the climate change part maybe a bit later, but if I look at two events which certainly have and will continue to challenge Sri Lanka. First is the relative increase in the political instability in the Middle East. Not just what happened in Qatar, but also the recent challenges in the UAE by the European Union regarding money laundering and tax haven. These things could definitely have impact on employability and Sri Lankan migration for work. There's no question about that. The other issue is the role of Russia in terms of influence over OPEC and oil, given that we are still depending on traditional sources of crude for our refined users. I think that will continue to haunt us till we are able to display and demonstrate a clear strategy towards reducing dependency vis-a-vis towards renewable sources. So that's, I think, an issue which we have to take seriously. And in terms of climate change, yes, it is an issue. And I think there is a lot more to be done. The rhetoric, it's a nice thing to say by 2040 we will have these vehicles. And that's a nice thing. But I think fundamentally we need to get at the individual granular citizen level, from I think school curriculum level, the importance of conserving the little resources we have, whether it is water, clean air, whatever it is, has to come from school level. And maybe even in terms of punitive and or incentives for better behavior at individual level and business level should be encouraged. And I think as a policy, if we are to get the small island climate friendly.
When you look at foreign policy and external trade proposals, what is your opinion of the island's standing?
Certainly from an external trade point of view, we see a conscious effort being made to reduce dependency just on one particular source. Certainly at one time it was India, or it was US maybe a decade ago, and now it's China. I think one thing is there is I think we are still, Sri Lanka in my opinion is blessed with this abundance of benevolence coming from multi sources. And we still have that window in engaging these various routes to have a more diversified trade policy, which I think is great for us. So I think one positive thing we have seen in the past couple of years was that there appears to be a concerted correlation or alignment between the foreign policy with trade policy, which I think is a pleasant and a very important thing for a country like Sri Lanka.
When it comes to trade in commodities specifically, what must Sri Lanka be focusing on going forward?
I think there is much more to be done, an opportunity for value addition and processing as opposed to just exporting primary commodities. For centuries we have been good at that, but what tends to happen is somebody else picks the cherry because of value creation. And I think today Sri Lanka has a very good track record of also embracing new technologies, excellent skill force, and I think there is enough governmental encouragement for skills development and value addition. I think enterprises and the private sector should certainly jump in the bandwagon and do far more value-added and process-oriented exports rather than just focusing on shipping something which they grow in their and just be content.
There has been so much rhetoric over the years, Mr. Theagarajah, about value addition, about what Sri Lanka should do, how Sri Lanka should brand, etc. But very few companies have actually gone out there and done it successfully. What is stopping Sri Lanka from doing this?
Two things. I think one aspect is this: being an island. As islanders, maybe this element of contentment at some point is there. Second is in terms of value addition and positioning something overseas, there is a significant investment required in branding for shelf space. So that's another issue. When one looks at most of these houses which are unlisted and family owned, so there is the dichotomy between perhaps not wanting to dilute ownership as against raising that amount of capital. But another thing also is value addition just doesn't have to be going out there and doing things. You can connect through the system locally. And that's where I think being a smaller nation where the economy is believed to be driven by the small and medium industry sector, I think there is and there has to be a continuous focus on getting SME Sri Lanka to join this value chain. It's absolutely important. And one message I would like to leave on behalf of the Chamber is we always tend to complain about access to finance or the fact that it's high cost. What I can say is that there's an opportunity for the SMEs by adopting better practices in terms of governance, compliance, better risk management. In the medium term, this will definitely have a positive correlation in their ability to raise better capital, more cost-effective capital, and benefit in the long run. So I think there is an opportunity and a need for middle-class Sri Lanka and SME Sri Lanka to embrace, recognize the need to embrace better practices in these areas.
So as a final question, what are the key takeaways that you can give us when you look back at 2017?
To me, the Hambantota port transaction, despite the various criticisms and news, to me was a good example of a PPP. And I hope that this sort of a transaction will strengthen the framework, because our FDIs have to have a strong correlation to PPP. So that was a good takeaway. I think the fact that the budget gave a clear signal to promote agri-related exports, not just the ICT side, is a good sign, because whether we like it or don't like it, 1/3 of our population is in that space. So instead of saying there is no hope for you, get into the chain. That was also encouraging. And I think the third area was business as a whole, I think has recognized that it's time not to look at handouts from government. I think the biggest blessing we have today is a war-free, terror-free Sri Lanka. So instead of asking for continuous subsidies and handouts, it's about getting along with your aspirations and vision and just connect with the rest of the world. Those are the three takeaways for me.
Thank you very much for joining us and a Happy New Year.
Let me also wish you and your family all the very best, Sayatri. It's always a pleasure.
That was Rajendra Theagarajah, the chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, giving his take on what has been happening in 2017. On the other side, we have Anushan Selvaraja with more.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Nearly 60% of all businesses in our country are SMEs. Some of our most growth-oriented financial solutions have been customized to serve this sector. That's why we have invested over 500 billion rupees to support the backbone of our economy. Because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Rajendra Theagarajah. Keeping with the theme of the show of the year in review, joining me now is market analyst and LME columnist Hasida Premratna to tell us how the bourse performed in 2017. Welcome back to the show, Hasida. Now, as I said in the introduction, just how has 2017 been for the bourse on the whole?
Yeah, I think it has been a highly volatile year and nothing new, because it was pretty much expected that things will be volatile, because we are operating in an extremely volatile political environment, plus globally, when you look at the Trump administration came into power the beginning of this year, again led to so much of uncertainty across the world on how the policies and the global markets would behave. So overall, the macro environment did have significant impacts towards the uncertainty that has been surrounding the market. Apart from that, we had a few natural disasters, a few floods, storms, etc., which also had an impact on, particularly on the agriculture sector, and did have an impact on the growth on the economy. So clearly, the volatility was the order of the day. We saw the index starting at about 6,228 points at the beginning of the year, and ending just 2% up in the end. But in the middle of the year, we saw also the index reaching close to 6,650 points. So I think the overall ups and downs were the highlight. But having said that, the most significant part for this year from a Colombo bourse point of view was the foreign participation. We saw significant foreign activity in the market, record high, all-time high when it comes to the foreign participation, including the net foreign purchases. Despite the big transaction of single international shareholders selling out to domestic shareholders, still we had recorded a net foreign inflow, and overall we've seen substantial amount of foreign inflows coming into the market during this year, which was a positive sign. The retail activity, local domestic retail activity was relatively low. Of course, we've seen some pickup, and the domestic local institutions like EPF, NSB, Bank of Ceylon have been also relatively silent this year. So overall, the foreign participation crossed 50% of the overall turnover of the year, which looked very interesting and very encouraging on one side. But on the other side, it was a bit disappointing because the local investors have not really been in the game. But foreigners, as we all know, have been more on accumulation mode. They've been looking at the longer term fundamentals and still collecting fundamentally sound stocks. So that really was the reason why they've been more active, whereas the local investors have been more looking at the short term volatility and the funds that they could take. It did not have too much of opportunities and activity for people to move around in smaller stocks. during this year, but it was more driven by the fundamentals, particularly the foreigners were looking for.
Now you mentioned the Singer trade and Haley's taking over it. Now some people are concerned that Haley's is overreaching itself. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the company has played in a wider field, in a big field. The playing field has been very wide because of the diversified sector and fairly represented the Sri Lankan economy at large. But having said that, I think this particular acquisition was done with a purpose, not necessarily as a extension to what they are currently doing, but it's been really an entry into the mega scale retail market. So these type of acquisitions are required. I think it's in a way acquisition, in a way a merger, you can call it either way, because these are two big companies kind of coming together. But I think the most important thing is whether this can create shareholder value, because ultimately the shareholder value will be created only if the synergies of the two companies can be brought together, and there can be a positive drive towards growing the market shares of the companies in a manner that it ultimately leads to cost savings and higher revenue growth, which improves profitability. So that's something to be seen, but I don't think really it's a major overreach, because these type of acquisitions, mergers are the order of the growth of companies and the consolidations that are required, because that's how things come together and grow and create big companies.
On that note, Hasita, for the new year, what do you hope to see as far as our capital markets are concerned?
I think the volatility will continue. Unfortunately or fortunately, that's going to be still the order of the day. We see too many things, too many puzzles still not fixed. So from the political front, first of all, when you look at the two major political parties who are together forming a national government and running through now almost 2.5 years, first of all, survival is happy to see that they're still surviving as a government. But then, having said that, I think some decisions have been delayed. We've had its good things as well as the bad things of unity governments we saw, and it looks like it will continue further on, and there's two more, at least little over 2 years term left for the government. So I think that will be a unique proposition, but looks like things are continuing that way, and that will lead to more and more uncertainty, because every day of this government will create a new set of unforeseen and unseen problems. So that naturally will create a volatility in the market, and something that investors generally don't like. The second thing I think is about the economic growth. Now, economy will definitely see some good funds coming in next year, I'm assuming, from the foreign direct investments in particular, because the port city is coming into some level of maturity, and first construction in the port city will start next year. Hambantota port deal was completed, and the related investments for further infrastructure growth, etc. The new business units to be started, industrial zones to be started in the area should get started next year. So some inflow of Chinese money will come further in the next year, and we should expect actually the economic activity to pick up gradually next year with those investments coming in. Parallel to that, we've seen India's interest as well, which is also encouraging. So there has to be some level of interest that will come from Indian side. But overall, with this money coming in, what it means is that the economic activity should improve. Again, weather goals, how it will play, we don't know, and that's something we cannot predict. But I guess keeping fingers crossed, there should be a better economic position next year when it comes to the growth. Currency should not depreciate too much. It should hold relatively, looking at the type of inflows that could come in next year. And also when you look at the interest rate environment, I don't see it coming down, but I don't see it going up either. So it should probably stay somewhere at the same level.
Thank you very much for joining us, Hasita, and wish you all the very best for the new year.
Thank you very much, and all the best for everybody for the year 2018.
That was market analyst and LMD columnist Hasita Premratna. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
Gami Pubudua, our microfinance offering, makes it possible for the youth of this country who have a viable business plan but lack the funds to realize their dreams. We are committed to grassroots level entrepreneur development because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Rajendra Theagarajah. Now for a closer look at the latest on the LMD Kanta TNS survey. Joining us is the country manager of Kanta TNS, Mihirani Sanaika, to talk to us about the year that was. Welcome back to the show, Mihirani. Now, how does the Kanta TNS survey reflect the year that was?
If you look at the survey results, it's very clearly majority seems to have high expectation within this year. So when we ask the question, how do you see the country has been faring for the nation, 7 out of 10 people believe that it should have been better, where 16% mentioned that yes, the country situation was good for the nation. Main 2 reasons that they highlighted that why the country situation would have been better for the nations, mainly because the natural disasters that we had to face in the country, as well as economic difficulties that the nation has to face.
Now, do the respondents feel that we as a nation have advanced both politically and economically?
We actually wanted to check, political and economic in two areas. So the question we asked was, whether the political situation has been strengthened. So 66% of the sample has said that, it is not so. Their expectation again would have been much higher than what it was. While there's a small percentage saying that yes, it has strengthened. Mainly because of the unstable political situations that they face was the reason that they attributed. However, economic situation again, more people had lot of expectation out of the economic situation. 77% believe that the economic situation should have been much better, so they don't agree to the fact that economic situation has improved in 2017. While another small percentage believe that yes, it has improved. And the 2 reasons against they have highlighted the tax burden as well as the fluctuations in economic of the country that they have experienced.
Do people believe that Sri Lanka has made progress in stamping out corruption?
Yes, Anusha, if you look at the survey results, around 2 to 3 out of 10 people who we interviewed believe that the corruption has been lessened than in the past. However, again, majority believes that it could have been much better, and they don't see that corruption has been reduced over the year, over the 12 months as per their expectation.
Right. What about a development agenda then, Mihirani? Has Sri Lanka fared well in this regard?
56% of people who we interviewed believe that it should have been much better than what it was, while 2 to 3 out of 10 people who we interviewed believe that there was some kind of development agendas which has taken off was successful for the year.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mihirani.
Thank you, Anushan.
That was the country manager of Kanta TNS, Mihirani Disanaika. On behalf of the team at Benchmark, I would like to take this opportunity to wish all our viewers a peaceful and prosperous new year. Thank you for watching.